Good evening. I would like to call the Planning Commission meeting of May 28th, 2019 to order. Madam Secretary, will you please take roll?
Commissioner Benavides, Commissioner Rivera, Commissioner Alderetti,
Here.
Vice Chair Contreras-Leo,
Here.
Chair McLaughlin,
Here.
Commissioner Cano, Commissioner Nguyen.
Here.
Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you. Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Cynthia, would you lead us? Thank you. At this point in time, if there's any member of the audience that would like to have a public comment, make public comments on a non-agenda item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public comments and we'll move on to the consent calendar. I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes of May 13th, 2019 and May 14th, 2019.
So move.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? Aye. 5-0, 2 absent. I'd like to make a motion on the absences of David Benavides.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Business calendar. We will now move on to the business calendar. The formal action of the Planning Commission shall become effective after the 10-day appeal period unless the City Council holds a public hearing on the matter. Then the formal action will become effective on the day following the hearing and the decision by the City Council. An appeal from the decision or requirement of the Planning Commission must be filed with the Clerk of Council and a copy sent to the Planning Department within 10 days of the date of the Commission's actions. The appeal may be made by any interested party, individual, or group. This is the time and place to hear item number 1, the amendment application number 2019-02, conditional use permit, number 2019-12, variance number 2019-01 for the property located at 1904 West 1st Street, 7-Eleven. At this point in time, this item has been recommended by staff to be continued to the June 10th meeting. Do we have a motion to continue this to June 10th?
Motion to continue to June 10th.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 6-0, 1 absent. This is the time and place to consider item number 2, conditional use permit for number 2019-13, conditional use permit number 2019-14, and conditional use permit number 2019-17 for the property located at 815 and 827, 829, and 907 North Bristol Streets, InNOut. If you wish to address the Planning Commission at this point in time, if you wish to address the Planning Commission when we have the open comments, please get your form from our Secretary. Before we start, is there any Commissioner who would like to disclose anything at this point in time? Okay, sure, is that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. As you stated, this application is for the InNOut Burger location at currently 815 North Bristol. And the applications that are before you this evening are for a drive-through service, window service, and for after hours. This is an image of the current InNOut. As a lot of you know, it's looking east towards the property, and you can see the stacking already there for the drive-through lanes. A little bit of the site description and the project that went before the planning division is the expansion of this lot this operation of InNOut Burger. A lot of people are affected by the traffic and the congestion that it creates for the drive-thrus and the effects that it has on the neighboring residential properties. So as you can see, it's located just above northeast of the intersection of Civic Center and Bristol. It does have commercial throughout, and it is part of the SP1, which is our Bristol Street specific plan. And so the site, as it currently sits, is about half an acre, and with the expansion and the taking on of the additional lots, it'll actually double in size. So a little bit of the description for the project itself. We are proposing not we, but InNOut is proposing to do a demo of the site and a rebuild, taking on 3 additional parcels, which I'll show you a little later on the presentation. But they are proposing to construct a roughly 1,800 square foot restaurant comprised of 2 buildings. The first one will be a kitchen, and the next one will be a bathroom building with the employee, locker rooms and that sort of thing. As part of the project, there'll be 2 drive-through lanes, pretty extensive, and I'll show you in the next image, and an outdoor dining area. So this is a site plan that's being proposed. As you can see, the 2 red markers will be the order menu boards and the speakers. And just to go over, and I'll show you a little bit more in context of what we have now out there, and what the city is proposing. Not the city, again, I'm sorry, InNOut is proposing in context to the new improvements, and you'll see great improvements there. So as the project is proposing 3 driveways, the first one is at the southmost of the property there. The next one will be towards the middle, and then the exit to the drive-throughs will actually be at the end. So that's just an exit only. All 3 driveways will be right in, right out, essentially, so no traffic impacts onto Bristol. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight is essentially the drive-through, and this is more of a visual to see how it's going to function and operate. You'll enter through the first driveway, and then it'll essentially wrap around the entire site. Will then exit onto Bristol again. So overall, you're looking at about 34 cars total between 2 lanes, which is a big improvement from what we have today. The other thing I wanted to highlight, and this is part of the conditions, is InNOut will be required to provide a monitoring program prior to permit issuance. And essentially one of those things that we went over is the possibility of temporary closing the first driveway, where then it could lead the additional cars so it doesn't spill onto Bristol and create more traffic and that sort of thing. So as you can see, it'll follow the same way to the order windows and the pickup and exit out. This would be the proposed site plan, and what I wanted to show you in this one is essentially what we have now compared to what's being proposed. So I wanted to use the landscape plan to give you a better visual of it. But essentially what we have now is half the property. And as you see, it's not exactly to scale, but it's as close as I can get to kind of show you what they're currently operating with and what they're proposing to. And so part of the project is to take on 3 additional parcels that will expand and double the size of the lot. This is a proposed elevation of the building. As you can see, it resembles a lot of what's currently out there, and that was part of InNOut's proposal to keep that character, that kind of vintage look. It is the 17th location that InNOut opened in its history. And so a little bit of the project, as I mentioned, drive-through lanes, walk-up window, and after-hours operation is what they're requesting of you for your review this evening. The site meets all development standards. The drive-through lane actually exceeds quite a bit from our minimum requirements. It'll fit approximately 34 cars with the additional 6 on site before it even begins to spill onto Bristol. So you're looking at 40 cars compared to 11 that actually fit today. And then we have added conditions of approval to pretty much assure that any impacts will be mitigated throughout the operation of the project. And then it also will continue to provide an amenity and a service to residents. A lot of people know this location. They're asking questions on when it will be constructed and demoed. Is it going to be operational during construction? Things like that. So it will continue to be an asset to the community. And with that, staff concludes the presentation and recommends that they adopt a resolution approving conditional use permits number 2019-13, -14, and -17 as conditioned. The applicant is here to answer any questions that you may have, and I'm also available to answer any additional questions. Thank you.
Okay, does the commissioners have any questions of staff? Cynthia?
Can you go back to the picture that demonstrates the three different entry points?
Oh.
So see how you have the arrows in the middle?
Yes.
Is that going to be accessible to go in through there or not?
So essentially, the two driveways at the middle one and the southernmost driveway will be in and out. So you can access the site and exit through that same driveway.
I'm just concerned that by allowing that on this end to enter, that it's going to cause what happens at Starbucks on Warner and Bristol. And that's that people come in through the one driveway and there's parking, and then the line becomes long, and then you get stuck and you can't get out. So, I mean, could we just keep it to the one entry and then the other one only exit?
So this was actually a part of the entire process for this development is to go through site plan review and see the options, and essentially, you know, before you there are conditions of approval that states anytime that the vehicles overflow past the drive-through lane, there'll be an attendant or someone from InNOut that will monitor the traffic flow on site so that we can avoid, or it can avoid, I'm sorry I keep saying we, but it can avoid the spillage onto Bristol. But one of those constraints obviously is blocking of customers trying to exit out. And so essentially what was proposed also is the parking on the southernmost side of the parcel, right next to the gas station, that will be reserved for workers. So the possibility of blocking that is even more reduced at that point.
And how much of seating is going to be inside?
So it actually, oh,
Is there seating or not? 'Cause
there is, and to its true nature of what is out there, InNOut wanted to keep that and just remain outdoor seating. So there'll be a total of about 41 seats
outside.
outdoor, yes.
Will it be covered?
Yes.
That's
So-
the space, that's the space between the parking area and the building itself is the outdoor area.
Yeah, and I can highlight that here a little better. So where you see the InNOut sign on the smaller building, just above that is the covered outdoor dining, and then to
Right.
the right of that, between the handicap stalls and the building, there'll be additional seats.
Okay, Ken?
I have a couple of questions. I live very close to the project site. I'm so happy to see InNOut Burger doing so well because every day, almost 24 hours, you see the line of car lined up on Bristol Street trying to get inside the InNOut Burger. And most of the time, the InNOut Burger have staff come out taking order on the parking lot and they're entering to the shopping retail center there. I think would be best if the InNOut Burger, the first entry to the lot should be both only one way. Because I can see the majority of the business of this particular project is drive-through. Most people are doing, a majority of the business are drive-throughs. If they could make both the first entrance, both only one way, everything dedicated for drive-through, and also leave the middle lane of that little street there for people going through, because it causes some problem for the customer going through that retail center as well, because so much traffic at the entrance, everybody try to get into InNOut Burger. So I can see on the new plan, the dedicated design mainly for the drive-through and also the walk-up windows. So if the first entry could be both lane for drive, because you can see they have 2 lane come in drive-through, right? 2 lane drive-through. So if it both lane on the entrance also go to for drive-through, by doing release the traffic on Bristol, especially the entrance so close to Bristol Street. So people, most of the time the car is back up on Bristol, try to get inside, drive-through. That's my comment number 1. Number 2, I noticed this on the plan does not indicate anything inside like dine-in. Mostly focus on drive-through and walk-up window. Is that right?
So to answer your first question about the drive-through, one thing I didn't mention as part of the description is that InNOut also provided almost like a operational facts of how much they can produce per hour. So essentially right now they only have one cooking, one cooking grill and 3 fryers, which averages out to about 20 cars per hour. But with the increased size of the kitchen, they're gonna have 2 cooking grills and 6 fryers. And then in worst case scenario where it does start to back up, they'll have attendants for the mobile ordering, and that's estimated to assist about 90 vehicles per hour. So the increase in the kitchen capacity and the speed and that sort of thing is one of the mitigation measures that they have on the operational side to make sure that it works properly. And also through the design review and for planning and circulation, we did look into one way in only, that sort of thing. But to alleviate some of the concerns for on-site traffic and congestion, we left that as an in and out, 2 driveways for those. And then if you don't mind, the second question was based on...
The no dine-in or drive-through and walk-in
Right.
window, right?
So part of the review is we did inquire to In-N-Out to provide an indoor seating. What they wanted as a company decision is to provide just outdoor, just like they do today, to maintain that character. And so, yes, most of it will be drive-through as you see today, but the option for dining is actually there today, and a lot of people utilize it. I myself utilize the outdoor dining. It's just pretty hard to find parking. So part of the improvements were to provide additional parking for those people that want to sit down and enjoy a burger outside.
I see. Thank you.
Just one quick one. When you talk about 34 cars, are we talking about the queue that starts in the backside of the
Yes, that is correct.
of the lot? So in essence, if you went and added that, if you shut down the first entrance and you added that extra line, is more than 34 cars?
So the 34 is actually from the furthest lane. The longest one, that's about 19 cars. And then the other lane, just to the bottom of that, is about 15. And that's just to the entrance, so it doesn't affect the circulation of the parking lot. It doesn't block any stalls. What I mentioned is with the additional 6 is if for some reason it starts to stack past the entrance, the main entrance of the drive-through. So you're looking at about 40 cars in that way.
Okay. Got it. Sheila?
Just one question. All 3 exits, they're all right turn only, or is there, so, okay. All right.
Yes, Public Works is part of the review for our site plan review, DRC, and it's pretty much right in, right out.
Okay.
No left onto Bristol heading south.
Got it.
And there's no impact to the bike paths that are there already?
No, part of this project is working together with Public Works as part of the expansion for Bristol, and so these improvements are kind of scheduled together with the improvements for the street widening and the bike paths. So after everything is completed, the entire project will be done.
So there'll be all 3
All-
entrances and exits will have bike path?
Yeah, yes. So bike path breaks, essentially. You know how you have the curb for the protection on the bike lane?
Like at the McDonald's down the street?
Exactly.
Okay. So we're gonna have the curbs too?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wasn't in the,
Yeah, this was only on site.
come on, Ivan, wasn't in the.
I'll speak to Public
All right,
Works.
fine.
The ordering location on there, is it under that covered area? Or whereabouts is the ordering?
So I don't have a pointer to make it easier, but the 2 lines that you see there, the red lines towards the left side on the top, those would be the order menus.
Okay.
And then just to the bottom of that is where the dining area is.
So now, the ordering location has moved closer to the wall, the back wall, which is closer to the neighbors.
Mhm.
What's the impact on that? I know we received some letters in regards to that. They were concerned that since it is potentially 24 hours, now you've got 2 going, what can we do to mitigate some of that so that it's not continuous? I mean, I don't know what it would be like to live on the other side of that wall and that's constantly going.
Right, so part of the mitigation of the design, if I can say it that way, is to provide the speaker volumes to lower at a certain time based on our code requirements, and those are in the conditions as well. The other is the Bristol plan actually requires block walls to be constructed around the perimeter. So those will be brand new block walls, cinder block walls that will reduce any noise. And additionally, we added another condition that for screening, noise, and visual, that when the applicant submits a formal landscape plan, that we will require certain tree species that will help with the noise and the visual intrusion onto the neighbor's area.
So is the block wall gonna be higher?
Yes,
Now, if there's trees, potentially as those trees grow, it can create trash for, on the other side, correct?
correct.
For the neighbors.
Potentially, yes.
So are we gonna try to keep that in mind so that it doesn't,
The applicant has intended to do a drought-tolerant type landscape plan, and so those would be low-maintenance type species. So a lot of those trees, will fill that screen, but
do you know how tall the brick wall will be?
the SP1, I believe, is asking for a minimum 8 when it's adjacent to 8 feet when it's adjacent to residential. So a lot of that has to play with the grade difference. We'd have to look at the finish grade on the residential side compared to the commercial and how that would affect, but
What is it now?
I do not have that information in front of me.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I noticed that they are planning to demolish the current building and then plan to build another new building. So the business will be closed for a while during construction or still open?
No, the proposal is to demolish completely and scrape the site, grade it, and then build from that. But to the time frame of how long it will be closed, I think the applicant will be a better answer.
Thank you.
So just to, one of the things that when you drive past that InNOut Burger, you always see a lot of, smoke and grease coming out of the grills. You're doubling the capacity, you're moving closer to the residents. How's that going to be mitigated?
So we did bring that up to the applicant, and they are providing improved equipment that handles the smell. We did bring that up as part of the meeting that staff had with a few of the Washington Square folks. And so, they are aware of it, and we are working with them to provide not only the screening, the adequate screening that planning requires for any rooftop equipment, but making sure that that is something that will be reduced based on the equipment that's being installed.
Okay, you guys are comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Eric?
So, Commissioner Leo mentioned that there was an issue with sound emanating from the speakers. So if I look at the condition approval number 5, it doesn't say anything about being lower. It just says that it has to comply with section 18.312. So conceivably they're complying with that now. So how is that lowering what the decibel level is?
So essentially, it's not to lower past the maximum allowance. Part of that was also to review any calls for nuisances or noise, issues. PD did provide a year information on calls for service, and out of the 3, none of them had any noise issues. Essentially, it was transients and another incident that had nothing to do with the actual operation of the business. But to comply to this, it's essentially a tool that we can guarantee that we can code enforce, essentially, based on these decibel levels.
Okay, thank you.
Angie?
For the condition number 3, it says that they will stay open until 1 a.m. Sunday through Thursday. What are the hours currently that they have? Are they just adding 30 minutes? Or?
So this is for the Exhibit A on the conditional use permit 2019-14?
Yeah.
And you mentioned it was section 3, or
Yeah,
point 3 and
condition
3?
number 3.
Yeah, so these are the hours that InNOut is actually proposing. I believe that that's their standard hours for any location, to open Sunday through Thursday until 1, and then 1:30 on Fridays and Saturdays. So this is what they're asking for. We're not going beyond that.
Okay, so they're just going to maintain outdoors, okay.
Yes.
And then you mentioned there was going to be mitigation in the middle, in the second entrance in the middle. Is that in the conditions here, or how would we know that's going to happen?
If you look at the other resolution for the drive-through and the walk-up window, essentially what we condition is that the applicant, prior to issuance of any of the building permit, to submit and review and be approved by the planning manager a traffic management plan designed to minimize any potential impacts. So there's no standard, as you see here on the screen. It's based on operational, so we can't really tell a company do it this way if they already have a standard way of doing it. And that'll be per review of the planning manager.
Okay, I'm just checking if we had anything here.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions of staff at this time? Okay, thank you,
All
Ira.
right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication on this item?
We have, and those have been distributed to the commission.
Okay. We'll open up the public hearing now. Would the applicant like to speak at this point in time?
Good evening, I'm Katie Sanchez, InNOut Burger, 13502 Hamburger Lane. Ivan's done a great job helping us through the last year of being in entitlements, and we're really happy to be here now. So a couple of the questions that came up that I kind of wanted to elaborate on was the reason that we're keeping the 2-lane store versus putting a dining room in. So our owner has a real, she's really into all of our stores and the design of them. And these older stores, as Ivan said, this is number 17. All these 2 lanes are ones that her grandparents actually were involved in building, and so she doesn't want us to demolish these and rebuild them. One of the ones that we did do was San Fernando, that was store 12. That one was falling apart, so we had to update that one with a retro look. But that was really one of a kind. The decision to go forward on this was because staff was allowing us to just do the 2-lane older store. This looks like one that we're designing, and staff guided us on this, is to do the classic look, that like our store 5 in Pasadena, like the store 17, store 4 in West Covina. So we really wanted to stick to that look. So a couple other things. I think there was a mention about the trees over, maybe going over the neighbor's yard. We have our own in-house landscaping crew, and really they're on top of things. A lot of times when we make deals with developers that they'll maintain our landscaping, we end up going in and doing it because we have a different kind of quality. So I'm sure something like that did happen. I don't see it happening, but if it did, the customer would just call customer service. We'd be out there and take care of it. One thing though that I did want to mention, and Ivan's aware of this too, is it's the condition number 4, which is the use of outdoor dining area to be limited to 11 o'clock p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and then midnight Friday through Saturday. All of our stores were open outside and inside 1 a.m. Sunday through Thursday and 1:30 Friday and Saturday. So just to keep things consistent, I spoke with operations. We'd really like to be able to keep the store and actually the dining room open until that time. I believe Ivan checked with police department, asked if there was any disturbances. I don't think they had. They said none, right, for outdoor. But one thing maybe if I can offer this instead, is if we can keep the outdoor dining open, maybe we can make the wall a little bit bigger, maybe a couple feet. That might mitigate any type of disturbance to the neighbors, something like that. We can discuss, or I can discuss it with Ivan. So other than that, do you have any questions for me?
Any questions of the applicant at this time? No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, actually,
All right, hold on.
so
Cynthia.
I did ask Ivan if the seating area outside is covered. On this picture, I can't tell. Will there, and not just umbrellas, because I know I've been there when it's super duper hot and we're boiling hot, and
Yeah.
then when it's raining, you can't even eat there.
So there's an outdoor patio, which is right kind of above where our back room building is where the bathrooms are going to be. Actually, to the right of that is our covered trash enclosure. So I think there's about maybe 9 tables underneath the patio, and then we also have our traditional umbrellaed outdoor tables as well. Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak or make a public comment at this point in time? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Do we have any further questions of staff at this point in time? Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion on item number 2? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve conditional use permit number 2019-13, 2019-14, and 2019-17 as condition.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Felix, second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 6-0, 1 absence. Okay. This is time and place to consider item number 3, 2019 local guidelines for the implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act. Please note that any recommendations on this matter will be forwarded to the City Council for final determination. If anybody would like to speak on this item, please fill out a card with the Secretary. We don't have any prior discussions on this subject, so Selena, it's yours.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight before you have the public hearing for adoption of local CEQA guidelines. So what we thought we would do before we get into the guidelines, which were attached to the resolution, is just to provide some basic CEQA information, kind of a CEQA 101, if you will. Some of this information will be old information for some of you, while it might be helpful for others. So in regards to what is CEQA, it's something that we hear staff saying, the public saying, fellow commissioners and council. It stands for the California Environmental Quality Act. It's a state statute that requires local agencies such as the city to identify significant environmental impacts and those actions that may be taken by the city in order to avoid or mitigate impacts if feasible. So it's our duty to determine what is and what is not subject to CEQA, and in applying the state guidelines and requirements, which are here, into projects. So when does CEQA apply? It would apply to what is called a project. So with that, there are 2 things to look at. The first is it a discretionary action required? So those are things that come before you as planning commissioners and city council members. Such as a conditional use permit, a variance, a general plan amendment, or a zone change. And then second, does the project itself then cause a direct physical change in the environment or a reasonably foreseeable indirect change in the environment? An example of this, or to put that into context, would be, for example, construction of a new wastewater or sewer treatment facility on a vacant lot. The physical impacts are then the construction and the development of the site itself, and the indirect impacts would be that then with this new service provided, you could foresee that the population may increase, which then may increase traffic, which then could cause an increase in air emissions. So then that CEQA analysis for that project itself would analyze all those things, the physical impacts of the project, and then traffic, air quality, etc. So there are different, I'm sorry for the color, but there are the hard copies for you to follow along as well. Different levels of CEQA review. The first being exemptions. So we've determined it's a project. Now we need to determine, is it exempt from CEQA? There are about 30 exemptions that are allowed as a categorical exemption and also statutory exemptions. So some examples of that would be an existing building. It's coming forward before Planning Commission for an ABC license. There is an exemption for existing facilities as long as you're not going to be doing certain things such as expanding the use, etc. So then if it's exempt, we would file the notice of exemption. If it's not, then we'd go on to the next step, which is the initial study. It's a checklist of about 30 sections in regards to aesthetics, biology, traffic, for example. And then each of those sections have a series of questions, anywhere from a couple to 5 questions that then would ask, is this going to create an impact? If there is potential, then we can draft a either negative declaration or a mitigated negative declaration, which includes mitigation measures. And then further, if there's still potential for impacts, would be an environmental impact report, which would then disclose any significant impacts. From that, there's also different tiering that can be done for a program EIR, supplemental EIR, or addendums. These are all things that you've heard as we're presenting, and so we just wanted to kind of go through in a flow chart manner of visualizing those different steps. Each one of these items then has their own time frames, their own process, and their own requirements. So we're not going to go into those finer details, but just give you the basics of what they are. So what are guidelines? So the first was a statutory, it's a code requirement, and the guidelines help us interpret those regulations and explain that. The purpose is to try to make the process something that's comprehensible to those that administer it, to those that are subject to it, like developers, and to the public. So why are we here tonight? The City of Santa Ana has not previously adopted local guidelines. On December 28th of 2018, the state adopted an overall comprehensive update to to CEQA and the guidelines. So at this time, now would be a good time for us to adopt our local guidelines, which have specific criteria for the city, and basically takes the state guidelines and puts it into a new format for local implementation. So with the assistance of BBK, we've drafted the set that's attached as the resolution, and essentially takes the requirements of the state law and case law and makes it in a format that's a step-by-step process for the city. So it still includes the general provisions, definitions, time limits, information on initial study or exemptions, MNDs and NDs, and EIRs. So these are, again, step-by-step procedures for us to implement when we do have a project for our city. There are no real specific changes from the state guidelines. It's essentially just implementing this, but this does allow us to have, for one, our own, and then this will allow us for any future changes or things that we can do to refine local thresholds or exemptions to have a document to work off of as a basis. So with that, it concludes staff's presentation. The next step would be that this would move on to City Council if Planning Commission recommends that action.
Does the commissioners have any questions of Selena? Ken, go ahead.
Explain to us the time limitation on review process from the initial application submitted and go to all the EIR and all that. What's the time limitation of each step? And knowing how long it takes the completion of the
So there's different time frames for different levels. So for example, the MND has a different time frame than an EIR. So from the time that we deem a project complete, meaning we have all the information, the site plan set, and we have all the studies, then there are different time frames depending on the type of document. Correct, yeah. So 180 days is 6 months, which is about typical of timeframes. There's a lot of back information and research that staff does before projects come before the Planning Commission, so that does start early on. It requires, technical analysis. Oftentimes we have a consultant assist us with drafting the document. We review the document, have it revised, and then it also includes public review timeframes, which are set within which level of review. So for example, an M&D could be anywhere from 20 to 30 days. So building all that in, there is a lot of time involved.
Cynthia?
Excuse me, let's say a developer comes in with a project and meets all these requirements, and let's say the Planning Commission denies it. do they go, and then when it goes to the city council, let's say they deny it for some reason. Based off of this, now the 2018 new requirements, does that mean they can come back and possibly take further action because their project met everything? Or is that not? Do you know what I'm saying?
The guidelines that you adopt today will be effective once the city council adopts them. So if your question is, could the new guidelines jeopardize any project that was previously approved, the answer would be no. Is that your question?
No.
Okay.
So I think what I'm hearing you asking is that by adopting these guidelines, will previous applicants or any future applicants who have a project denied, can they come back and challenge local guidelines against state guidelines? Our guidelines is being adopted mirroring the state guidelines. What the state guidelines allow us to do is adopt some local refinements to match with what we do. As Selena had indicated, we are practitioners, so we are by trade are interpreting state guidelines, and we're subject to challenges. By adopting local guidelines, it gives us much more clarity as to how we apply it locally, and it allows the development community to see how we're applying it. So if they're challenging it, they're challenging something that's adopted, not just a staff interpretation. So the answer is no, they won't be able to challenge us against the state guideline because we're adopting and mirroring the state guidelines.
Thank you.
Question I've got is, there's a paragraph in here. I mean, if I get this and understand this, we've been, up till now, we've been just adopting the guidelines from the state. And we have not had any local guidelines. They've just been what the state has put forth each year because it evolves on a periodic basis. And I'm reading this one section in here, and it looks as though it's the state CEQA guidelines have been updated on an ongoing basis. And it says that, we're going to adopt this so it'll allow any future changes to the revisions to be adopted, allow the state guidelines to be considered as part of the city's implementation procedure. So if we approve this, are we saying from now on we don't have to approve any of the changes that are coming through with regards to CEQA?
What this proposal does is that it allows us to continue to be mirroring with the state guidelines. However, we will be coming back periodically with updates and changes as either we have significant case law that may change how we interpret locally.
Right.
But in terms of being in compliance with state law, we are continuing to be mirroring state law as we move forward.
Okay, so
Best practice would be to come back.
best practice would be to come back and review the updates and approve the updates.
Correct.
Correct?
That would be correct.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? No? Okay. Thank you, Selena.
Thank you.
Okay, so, at this point in time, Madam Secretary, have you received any written communication on this item?
We have not.
We will open up the public hearing. Since there's no one here to say anything in the public hearing, we will close the public hearing. Does the commission have any further questions of staff?
So I'm really getting familiar with the CEQA guidelines. You guys will filter this in as projects come in, I'm guessing?
So as project comes in, we provide recommendation in terms of the evaluation and the findings. When the applicant submit application projects to us, we work with them to determine what level of analysis are required. And when we go to Planning Commission, we make a recommendation to you on adopting findings for that. Yes, correct.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? All right. Does the Planning Commission have any Any discussion at this point in time? Okay, can I have a motion with regards to item number 3?
So moved.
Okay, second? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0 with David Benavides absent. Okay, we'll move on to public comments. Or not public comments,
No, staff.
staff comments, my apologies.
Thank you. I just have one quick comment. I want to extend appreciation and thank you to the commission for being flexible at the last May 13th meeting in terms of being able to continue your May 13th meeting to May 14th as well. That may be a small gesture on your part, but I think it's significant in terms of how it moved the city forward. Just to kind of give you a perspective, that was over $1.5 billion of private investment that's being moved forward to City Council for consideration. It's a significant amount of movement in terms of projects as well as progress in our city, so I just want to say thank you.
Okay. India?
Yes, I wanted to announce that the Neighborhood Initiatives Group has been working with the Santa Anita neighborhood, and they last week at the Palm Springs National Conference, they received an award for best social, or second to best social revitalization, and it was pretty amazing because they competed with neighborhoods from all over the country, and as a result of the Neighborhood Initiatives Group, the Santa Anita neighborhood received that award, so it was pretty significant.
Great, thank you.
I
Cynthia?
remembered I have a question for staff, sorry. Do you have any updates on the potential and proposed conversations or chat that Hector's was going to have with the neighborhood? I know the last I saw it wasn't really working out. Has there been any movement on that since then? Yeah, meeting has been set between the neighborhood, and that will be on June 24th. It'll be the same day as your next planning commission meeting, so, June 24th.
or at one of your future planning commissions. Unfortunately, that was the only time that we could get all the people together for that meeting.
And Hector's was okay with waiting that long as well?
Pardon me?
Hector's was okay with postponing that long? Because I know they were hoping to
Yes.
be done with that soon.
They were hoping, but
Okay.
that was the only
But they
time
worked
that
it
the
out.
neighborhood group could move forward, so.
Thank you.
So what we're hearing is that we probably won't be reviewing Hector's until sometime in July, August timeframe?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. All right.
Forward the invitation to all the commissioners.
But we have a schedule
Um,
conflict.
That
Yeah,
is-
you will, but we will at least forward the invitation to you, so you'll have it.
Okay, yeah.
That will
Commission
be,
meeting's the same day.
that will be at the same time as the planning commission meeting, so hopefully you'll be here. It will be their neighborhood association meeting, so,
But we will have staff present at the meeting,
yes,
and we can provide the notes.
I do know that Councilman Priscilla wanted to attend as well, so maybe she can attend even if I can't.
yeah.
And staff that goes someone will be bilingual?
Will be,
Staff that attends the meeting would most likely need to be bilingual.
Okay, noted.
The neighborhood, the folks that came spoke Spanish, not English that much. Thank you.
Any other comments from staff? Okay, thank you. Felix, any comments? Eric?
No comments.
Cynthia? Okay. Angie? All right.
No
Yeah.
comment.
for tonight? Make it quick and easy? Record-breaking, 1 hour?
Making up for last time.
Yeah, yeah.
make a last meeting.
Sure, we'll make it up in the future. Thank you, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.